So here we are as we begin Shabbat. We can tell it's fall because I see the sun going down, down, down. Thrilled to welcome Cantor David Goldstein back this Shabbat. They let you out of Florida. Yes. We did a little clergy swap. He came up from the south. Rabbi Geffen is in North Carolina for Parents Weekend at Duke. So, God, we can't have you both in the same place, but Wendy's prayers are with us. Yeah. So before we turn to candles and prayer, I'm going to actually, Josh, give a short sermon up front with some reflections and teachings from this week to frame our prayer this evening. So you don't even have to open your prayer books yet. And indeed, what a week it's been. Last Shabbat, as many of you know, we finished our brand new Torah scroll. We celebrated the Sefer Torah, the scroll, and Torah generally, unrolling the new scroll in the large sanctuary and reading the opening verses from this scroll. Verses in which we read that God creates the world from tohu vavohu, a chaotic, unformed space that is filled with darkness. From the darkness and confusion, God says, Yehi or, and brought forth light. Light and darkness were separated, and light was called good. And then not 3 days later, we awoke, or some of us never went to sleep, we awoke to miraculous news that the remaining living hostages were released, returned home to Eretz Yisrael, to their families, to their lives, to journeys of healing. And it seemed and seems that a peace agreement has been made. That at last, after 738 days, it seemed that light had prevailed over darkness, and we could breathe easier and celebrate. As our Israeli rabbinic colleague Ayala Miron wrote, today, earlier in the week, on the eve of Simchat Torah, exactly 2 years after the October 7th horrific attack on Israel, we stand in awe. Our brothers and sisters are coming back home from distress to comfort, from darkness to light. Celebration, cheering, gathering with prayers and songs of gratitude from Israel to this very sanctuary and across the Jewish world. In Torah, the delineation between light and dark is abundantly clear. God makes a division between them. The sun lights the day, the moon and stars by night. In a midrash, a rabbinic teaching story on that creation story, the rabbis teach that as the sun began to set for the first time in those first days of creation, Adam, the first human, became afraid. He feared that the serpent, the story of the Garden of Eden, the serpent was coming to strike him, to harm him. And Adam didn't know, because he didn't know from darkness, right? The darkness was enveloping him, and he was bewildered. So what did God do, the rabbis taught? God gave Adam 2 flint stones. And what can you do with 2 pieces of flint? There's a Boy Scout here. Fire. Make fire. Adam struck them one against the other, and light emerged from them. And Adam, the rabbi said, recited a blessing over it. In other words, God gave man the tools to make light for himself, and Adam made light. We learn as well in the creation story that each of us is created b'tselem Elohim, in the divine image. That is, each of us has a piece of God within us. And as Rabbi Leisman taught us in Rosh Hashanah, when humans were created, God doesn't recognize goodness then. He explained that Torah doesn't say ki tov when humanity is created because that part was left to us. We are ultimately the ones who determined whether it was a good idea that humanity was created. Punchline, Rabbi Leisman said it was a good idea on Rosh Hashanah. In other words, it's up to us how we act in the world. Do we bring our divine likeness, that piece of God in us, to create goodness or not? One writer this week, looking at the agreement in Israel, spoke of an optimistic but uncertain future. We hope and pray that peace will prevail across Israel, across the lands of its neighbors. Peace, of course, relies on more than prayers. Our tradition, as I so often remind us, instructs us, Bakesh shalom urodfehu, seek peace and pursue it. In other words, we can't just sit around and wait for peace, nor do we just pray. We have to seek it, run after it. A rodef is a pursuer. We need to look for peace, run after it, make it happen, near home and out in our world. If only, right? If only our will and our actions, coupled with our prayers, could make peace. Here in Chicago, our prayers and actions here in Chicago could make peace happen in Israel and across the globe. We don't give up. A little later in our service, after Micha Mocha, we will pray Hashkivenu, our prayer asking for God's sheltering presence, Sukkot Shlomecha, a sukkah of God's peace in the darkness. This prayer, we are taught, comes from a time when our ancestors didn't understand darkness. They didn't even understand sleep. They thought they died and came back to life. So the prayer asks for life. It asks for protection. It asks for safety at night. A beautiful explanation of this prayer teaches, and I quote, "Every evening our prayers ask God to spread upon us the sukkah of your peace, Sukkot Shlomecha, an image that anyone who has ever dwelt in the peacefulness of a sukkah can likely appreciate. The sukkah affords a rare feeling of containment and protection, paradoxically heightened by its very real vulnerability to what is beyond it. The sukkah's fragility is a reminder of the exquisite and precious impermanence of life and the critical interdependence of peace, shelter, and survival." The commentary continues, "We grieve for those everywhere who, because of war, social failings, or unnatural disasters, lack the shelter they need to preserve human life and dignity. We pray for the shelter of peace with Hashkivenu, for us and all our relations." So we will pray tonight, because that's what we Jews do. Jews do daily, Jews do on Shabbat. As we pray Hashkivenu in a little bit, we are basically asking for unlimited divine protection, which in the words of one of our NSCI teenagers, when we studied this text in the Sukkah a few days ago, is a really big ask. But we keep asking. And as we do, we're challenged to think about, to reflect on our own efforts. How do we seek peace? How do we pursue it? How do we help make it happen? Make it real. In our liturgy, we pray for protection at night, and we express gratitude for the light in the day. And we recognize that we, like the first human, can make light. Maybe not with flint stones or with those two, but we can bring a bit of the divine, our own godliness, into the world with our actions and words. It would be great if we could do it all. We enter this evening, this Shabbat, with the lights of Shabbat we will kindle shortly, an awareness that our own ability to bring light is real. We enter the Shabbat with the joy and hope of this week, of lives returned, with the miracles of survival, and with the hope and safety that a protective presence, Sukkot Shlomecha, can be spread on Israel, on innocent Gazans taught, and the terror of Hamas still, on us, and on all peaceful, loving peoples. And so in this week of joy and sadness, in this week in which we've welcomed home hostages and mourning lives, and while so many deceased have not yet been buried because their bodies are still being held hostage, we don't yet say Kaddish for all those who died. The tradition is to say Kaddish after people are buried, unless a certain amount of time has passed, because the Talmud teaches. But we have lit, as you may see, a memorial candle up front. For this Shabbat, you may recall, for the last 2 years, we've lit a third Shabbat candle. We've changed from that third candle, at least for this week, and we light that candle as a memorial candle, reflecting on all those who died. We don't know what we'll do next week or in the weeks to come. We'll see. We pray their bodies will be returned and we can say Kaddish together. So what we do next week and in the weeks following, we don't know. We would love certainty as to the future of peace in Israel and the return of those bodies, those who were murdered in war. We don't have it. So tonight, this light shines with memory.